Welcome to the Create More Intimacy podcast. I'm Elisa Stoddard, and I help men stop chasing sex and start building real connection so they finally feel close, connected, and wanted again. Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about something I'm hosting next week that I think is worth your time. On Wednesday, June 18th at 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time, I'm running a free live webinar called What She Stopped Saying. It'll be about 30 minutes, and I'm going to walk you through what's actually happening when communication breaks down in a long-term relationship, what she's signaling, why you're probably missing it, and what to do about it. If you've been a long-time listener to this podcast and you've been wondering what it looks like to go deeper on this work, this is a great place to start. It's free. Spots are limited. Register at the link in the show notes. Now, this week's episode is actually a re-release of an episode because it's still one of the biggest patterns that I see with men. I hope you enjoy it. On to the episode. Let me guess. You're doing everything you're supposed to. You're showing up, you work so hard, and you're trying not to start fights. You're keeping the peace, and you're present with your kids. And you're providing. And yet, deep down, you still feel like it's not enough. She's not warm. She's not affectionate. She barely says thank you anymore. And when she does, it doesn't really land. You find yourself brushing it off or needing her to say it again the next day. And maybe you're wondering, why do I feel so invisible in my own marriage? Maybe you've even started asking yourself the deeper question no one talks about. What's wrong with me that her appreciation doesn't stick? If that sounds familiar, this episode is going to hit home because what you're feeling isn't neediness. It's not weakness. And you aren't broken. You are just stuck in a pattern that most men don't even realize they are in. Let's talk about why her validation doesn't last and what to do instead. If you've ever thought, if she would just appreciate me, if she would show me that I matter to her, if she would just say something kind, then I'd finally feel okay. Then you already know this pattern. She says something kind, gives you a compliment, tells you she appreciates you, and it helps for a minute. And then it fades. You find yourself questioning whether she really meant it, or wondering why she doesn't say it more often, or feeling resentful that you had to bring it up and ask for it. I worked with this client who told me once, I just wanted her to tell me I was doing a good job. And by all accounts, he was. He was working hard. He was showing up for the kids, and he was trying to hold it together. He was helping around the house. But even when she did say something appreciative, it didn't land with him. It bounced off. Because here's the truth. Validation doesn't last when you don't believe it yourself. It's like trying to fill a bucket with no bottom. And this is why it happens. You get the compliment. It feels good for a moment. And then your brain kicks in and rattles around stuff like, does she really mean it? She's just saying it because I asked her to. If she really appreciated me, she'd say it more often and I wouldn't have to tell her. And just like that, you're back in the hole, doubting her, doubting yourself, and growing more frustrated and resentful. Here's the deeper pattern I see over and over again. You show up hoping to be appreciated. You don't get the reaction that you hope for. You start doubting yourself. You get distant, sarcastic, or shut down. She senses that tension and pulls away more. Then you chase it again. Rinse and repeat. And the cycle continues, not because you're weak, but because your sense of worth is sitting in someone else's hands. Another guy I worked with had been married for something like 17 years, and he said, "She tells me she loves me, but I just don't feel like it's anything but lip service. She tells me she loves me, but it just feels like words." It didn't feel earned, and it didn't feel real to him. And the more he tried to get her to prove it, the less she wanted to engage. And that's the trap. When you rely on her words to determine your worth, you end up chasing something she can't give you consistently. It's not because she's cruel, and it may not be even because she doesn't want to. She may want to help, but it's because you are trying to solve an internal insecurity with external reassurance. Unfortunately, this dynamic bleeds into the physical side of your relationship too. When you don't feel wanted and she senses that tension under every interaction, even when sex does happen, it feels hollow. She pulls away altogether, not because she doesn't care, maybe, but because every request for intimacy just feels like pressure, like another place she has to prove something to you. And it's just exhausting. Honestly, it's exhausting for both of you. Let me be super clear here. Self-validation doesn't mean you don't want appreciation. It doesn't mean that you never want her to say something kind. It just means you stop needing it in order to feel okay. It means you stop outsourcing your emotional stability to someone else. Sometimes it's her, but let's be honest. I hear so many men talk about how they wish their dads would have validated them or complain about that their bosses don't. That's you outsourcing your emotional validation to someone else. And it means you start building internal trust. This is where you start to move the needle. And it's the kind that makes it easier to receive her appreciation when it does come, instead of brushing it off or mistrusting it. Here are some questions to sit with. What do you make it mean when she does validate you? Do you believe I'm only enough if she says so? Or I'm only enough if my dad would finally acknowledge that I made something of myself? When was the last time you acknowledged something that you did well without wanting her or someone else to notice? When was the last time your acknowledgement was enough? If you want to start changing this dynamic, try this. The next time you catch yourself wanting her or anybody else's approval, stop. Pause right there. Ask, what do I know to be the truth about myself right now? Maybe you handled something with maturity. Did you stay calm when it mattered? Did you show up in a way that you are proud of? That moment right there. That's where real confidence starts to grow. When my client stopped chasing her approval and started owning his own wins, everything shifted. He wasn't cold or indifferent. It was different. He was actually grounded, and he validated himself first and then noticed how she started responding differently. Because now it wasn't about her proving something to him. It was about connecting, but this time without all of that pressure. When you stop needing validation and start trusting yourself, you become more steady. You become more emotionally safe and more confident, even when things aren't perfect. That's when the intimacy has a chance to return, not because you chased it, but because you created the safety and strength in which it thrives. You don't have to get this perfect, but when you stop waiting for her to tell you who you are, you finally stop. You finally start becoming the man who doesn't have to ask. Thanks for listening. That was episode number 1. If something in there hit close to home, that's not an accident. That's a feeling worth paying attention to. And if you want to take it further, not in theory, but with your actual situation in mind, remember, I'm hosting a free live webinar on June 18th called What She Stopped Saying. It's Wednesday, June 18th at 12:30 p.m. Mountain. It'll be about 30 minutes, and I'm going to be direct about what's actually going on in the dynamic you're living in. Register at the link in the show notes. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next week. Thanks for being here. If something in this episode hit home, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more men find the support they need. And if you are ready to get help or take the next step, you'll find the link to book a free call in the show notes. I'll see you next time.